Hey, my name is Noah Bennett. I'm 27, and I live in a small apartment in Capitol Hill, Seattle. I work as a freelance video editor for small advertising agencies and a few YouTube channels that still can't afford full-time staff. It's not glamorous, but it pays the rent and lets me keep my own hours. Most days I sit in front of two monitors with noise-canceling headphones on, cutting footage until my eyes burn. I have one person I call the second anything happens in my life, good or bad. Her name is Maya Collins. She's 26, works as a UI/UX designer for a startup that makes productivity apps, and she's been my best friend since freshman year of college. We met in a required communications class. I was the guy who always showed up late with coffee stains on his notebook. She was the one who actually took notes and somehow still had time to help me pass. We pulled all-nighters together on group projects, ate instant ramen in her dorm when neither of us had money for real food, and stayed up until 4 in the morning talking about the kind of people we wanted to become. When I got dumped by my first serious girlfriend sophomore year, Maya showed up at my apartment with 2 pints of ice cream and didn't leave until I stopped crying. When she lost her first internship, I drove her to the interview for the next one and waited outside in the car for 2 hours. People always assume we're together. We get it. The way we finish each other's sentences, the way we can sit in silence for 20 minutes without it feeling weird, the way I'm the first person she texts when something good or terrible happens. But we're not. We've never been. I've told myself that so many times it's become automatic. We're just best friends, that's what I say. Maya usually just smiles and changes the subject. Tonight started like a lot of nights lately. I had gone on another date from one of those apps I keep telling myself I'm going to delete. Her name was Tessa. She was pretty, worked in marketing, and within the first 15 minutes of sitting down at the restaurant, she had already asked me how much I made last year, whether I owned property, and if I was serious about financial stability. I tried to steer the conversation toward movies or travel or literally anything else, but she kept circling back like she was conducting a job interview for the position of future husband. I left after the main course, made up something about an early client call. The second I got home, I kicked off my shoes, opened my laptop, and called Maya like I always do. She answered on the second ring, sitting on her couch in an oversized sweater, eating cereal straight from the box. Her hair was up in that messy bun she wears when she's had a long day at work. The second she saw my face, she grinned. "Another one bites the dust?" she asked, mouth full of Cheerios. I groaned and leaned back in my chair. She asked me if I had a 5-year financial plan. During appetizers, Maya laughed so hard she almost choked. "Noah, I keep telling you, you're not going on dates, you're going to job interviews for the role of stable boyfriend with good credit." "Tell me about it," I said. At this point, I'm starting to think I should just put my W-2 on my dating profile and save everyone some time. She shook her head, still smiling, but something in her eyes looked a little tired. I didn't notice it then. I was too busy venting. "I don't know why I keep doing this," I said. "Every time I meet someone new, it feels like I'm checking boxes instead of actually connecting with a person. Maybe I should just delete the apps for real this time." Maya was quiet for a second, then she said, "You've said that before." "Yeah, well, this time I mean it." She gave me a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You always say that too." We talked for another hour, the usual stuff. She told me about a nightmare client who kept changing the app design at the last minute. I told her about a video project that was driving me crazy because the client couldn't decide on a color grade. We made fun of our mutual friend Grant, who had started wearing beanies indoors like he was in a music video. It felt easy. It always feels easy with Maya. Around 11:45, she yawned and stretched. "I should probably sleep. I have an early meeting tomorrow." "Yeah, me too," I said, even though I didn't. "Thanks for listening, again." "Always," she said. Then she did that thing where she tilts her head a little and looks at me like she's about to say something else. But she didn't. She just smiled. "Good night, Noah." "Good night, Maya." I watched her reach for her laptop to end the call. The screen went black for a second, then came back. I figured it was just lag. I was about to close my own laptop when I heard another voice in the background. "Chloe, Maya's roommate?" I should have closed the laptop right then. I should have respected her privacy. But something made me pause. Chloe's voice came through clearly. Was that Noah again? Maya sighed. I could see her now, sitting on the couch with her back to the camera. She didn't know I was still there. Yeah, she said. Chloe walked into the frame holding a glass of water. You know, at some point you're going to have to stop letting him do this to you. Maya didn't answer right away. She just stared at the floor. Chloe sat down beside her. He calls you every single time a date goes bad. He tells you about every girl he meets. And you just sit there and listen like it doesn't kill you a little more every time. I know, Maya said quietly. Then why do you keep doing it? Maya was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft I almost didn't hear it. Because I love him, Chloe. I've loved him for a long time. But he only calls me when another girl disappoints him. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stopped breathing. My hands froze on the keyboard. Maya kept talking, her voice cracking just a little. He doesn't see me that way. He never has. And if I tell him how I feel, I might lose him completely. At least this way. At least I still get to be in his life. Chloe put a hand on her shoulder. Maya. I'm fine, Maya said, even though she clearly wasn't. I've been fine for 6 years. I can keep being fine. I don't remember deciding to speak. The words just came out. Maya? Both of them froze. Maya's entire body went rigid. She turned slowly toward the laptop, eyes wide with horror. Chloe's mouth fell open. Maya's face went pale. You? You're still there? I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. Yeah. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Then Maya lunged forward and slammed the laptop shut so hard I heard it through my own speakers. The screen went black. I didn't move for a long time after the screen went black. My apartment was quiet except for the low hum of my laptop fan and the distant sound of rain tapping against the window. I sat there staring at the dark screen like it might somehow replay the last 30 seconds and tell me I had imagined everything. But I hadn't. I've loved him for a long time, Chloe. He only calls me when another girl disappoints him. The words kept looping in my head, each repetition hitting harder than the last. 6 years. 6 years of late-night calls, inside jokes, and pretending we were just friends. 6 years of me telling myself that the way my stomach flipped when she laughed at my stupid jokes was normal. That the way I always wanted to tell her first when something good happened was just what best friends did. I had spent so long convincing myself that what we had was safe, that it was better this way. Because if I ever admitted how I really felt, I might lose the one person who had seen me at my absolute worst and still chose to stay. And now I knew she had been doing the exact same thing. I don't know how long I sat there. 5 minutes? 10? My hands were still frozen on the keyboard. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a rope around my ribs and was slowly pulling it tighter. Then the screen lit up again. Maya's face appeared. She looked like she had been crying. Her eyes were red, her hair had fallen out of its bun, and she was breathing like she had just run up a flight of stairs. Chloe stood behind her, arms crossed, looking like she was ready to throw my laptop out the window if I said the wrong thing. You're still there, Maya said. Her voice was small, almost broken. I nodded slowly. Yeah. She swallowed hard. How much did you hear? Enough. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had ever experienced. Even through the screen, I could feel it pressing against my chest. Maya looked down at her hands. You weren't supposed to hear that. I know. Then why didn't you hang up? I let out a shaky breath. Because I couldn't move. Because every single thing you said felt like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I had been sitting in the dark in for years. She didn't say anything, just kept staring at her lap. Chloe leaned forward slightly. Noah, if you're about to say something stupid like, I'm sorry you feel that way, I swear to God. I'm not, I cut in. My voice came out rougher than I expected. I'm not going to apologize for how you feel. That would be insulting. Maya finally looked up at me. Her eyes were glassy. Then what are you going to say? I ran a hand through my hair. My heart was hammering so hard I was surprised she couldn't hear it through the microphone. I'm going to say that I've been doing the same thing, I admitted. I've been comparing every single girl I meet to you, and none of them ever come close. I thought I was just being picky. I thought I was just bad at dating. But the truth is, I've been measuring everyone against the one person I was too scared to lose. Maya's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. I call you after every terrible date because you're the only person who makes me feel like I'm not completely broken. I continued. I tell you about every girl I meet because I'm trying to convince myself that one of them might eventually feel the way you do. But none of them ever do, and I kept pretending I didn't know why. I leaned closer to the camera. Maya, I've been in love with you for so long I don't even remember what it felt like before. I just buried it under the word friend because losing you felt like the worst possible outcome. So I stayed safe. I stayed in the lane we both agreed on. And I let you do the same thing. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, like she was angry at herself for letting it fall. You don't get to say that just because you feel guilty, she whispered. You don't get to rewrite 6 years of friendship into some tragic love story just because you overheard something you weren't supposed to hear. I'm not rewriting anything, I said. I'm finally admitting what I've known for years but was too much of a coward to say out loud. Chloe muttered something under her breath that sounded a lot like, about damn time, but neither of us acknowledged her. Maya shook her head. This is too much. I can't. I need time to think. You need time to think. We can't just. I'm coming over, I said. She froze. What? Right now? I'm not doing this through a screen. I'm not going to have the most important conversation of my life with a webcam you forgot to turn off. Noah, it's almost midnight. It's raining. You don't have to. I do, I said firmly, because I've already wasted 6 years pretending. I'm not wasting another night. I stood up and grabbed my keys from the counter. Maya watched me through the camera, her expression a mix of fear and something that looked dangerously close to hope. Chloe's here, she said, almost like a warning. Good, I replied. She can make sure I don't say anything stupid. I heard Chloe snort in the background. Maya hesitated. Then she nodded just once. Okay? I didn't say goodbye. I just ended the call, shoved my phone in my pocket, and walked out into the rain. The drive to her apartment usually takes 18 minutes. That night it felt like an hour. Every red light gave me too much time to think. Every raindrop on the windshield reminded me of all the nights we had spent talking until sunrise, all the times I had almost said something real and then swallowed it back down. I thought about the way she always saved the last slice of pizza for me, even though she claimed she didn't like the crust. I thought about how she knew exactly how I took my coffee and how she never let me pay for anything when I was between jobs. I thought about the way her voice got softer when she was tired, and how I had spent years convincing myself that noticing those things didn't mean anything. By the time I pulled up in front of her building, my hands were shaking. I sat in the car for a minute, staring at the rain sliding down the windshield, trying to steady my breathing. Then I got out and walked to her door. Chloe opened it before I could even knock. She looked me up and down, rain dripping from my hair onto her welcome mat. If you're here to break her heart, you can turn around right now, she said quietly. I mean it. I'm not, I said. I'm here to stop pretending. I haven't been in love with her since the day she helped me pass that stupid communications class. Chloe studied my face for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. She's in the living room, she said. And Noah? Yeah? Don't mess this up. I nodded. I won't. I walked past her and into the apartment I had been in 100 times before, but tonight it felt different, like the air itself had changed. Maya was standing in the middle of the living room in that same oversized sweater, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something in. Her eyes met mine the second I stepped through the doorway. Neither of us spoke. For the first time in 6 years, there was nothing left to hide behind, and I had never been more terrified in my life. Then she said, so softly I almost didn't hear her, "You didn't have to come." Yes, I did. She wrapped her arms around herself. Noah, it's the middle of the night. It's pouring. You could have waited until morning. You could have. I couldn't, I cut in. Because if I waited, I would have found a reason to keep waiting, and I've been doing that for too long already. Maya looked down at the floor. You heard everything. I did. And now you feel bad. You feel guilty. So you're here because you don't want to be the bad guy who broke his best friend's heart without even knowing it. I took a slow step closer. Is that really what you think? She didn't answer. I took another step. Maya, I'm not here because I feel guilty. I'm here because for the first time in 6 years, I finally have an excuse to stop lying to myself. And to you. She looked up at me then. Her eyes searched mine like she was trying to find the catch. The part where this all fell apart. What if I hadn't forgotten to turn off the webcam? She asked. Her voice cracked on the last word. What if you had never heard me say those things? Would you still be standing here right now? I was quiet for a long moment. I owed her the truth, even if it hurt. Probably not, I admitted. I would have kept pretending. I would have kept calling you after every bad date and telling myself it was just friendship. I would have kept comparing every girl I met to you and convincing myself that one day I'd find someone who felt even half as right as you do, and I would have kept lying to both of us. Maya's eyes filled with fresh tears, but she didn't look away. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry it took me this long. I'm sorry I made you carry this alone. I'm sorry I was too much of a coward to say what I should have said years ago. She shook her head. Don't apologize for something you didn't know how to say. I knew, I said quietly. I just chose not to. The space between us felt charged, like the air right before a thunderstorm. I could see every detail of her face, the way her bottom lip trembled slightly, the way her fingers were gripping the sleeves of her sweater, the way she was breathing like she was trying very hard not to fall apart. I don't want this to be because of guilt, she whispered. I don't want you to wake up tomorrow and realize you only said all of this because you felt sorry for me. I took one more step. We were close enough now that I could smell the faint trace of her shampoo, the same one she had used since college. I'm not saying this because I feel sorry for you, I said. I'm saying it because every single path in my life has quietly led me back to you. I just kept taking detours because I was terrified of what would happen if I finally admitted it. Maya's breath hitched. And what happens now? I looked at her, really looked at her, and let every wall I had built over the past 6 years fall away. Now we stop pretending, I said. Now we stop hiding behind the word friend like it's some kind of shield. Now we figure out what this actually is without the lies. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. What if we cross this line and it ruins everything? I didn't hesitate. I don't want to go back to where we were, I said. I don't want to keep being the guy who only calls you when someone else disappoints him. I don't want to keep watching you be brave enough to love me while I stay safe behind a label that doesn't fit anymore. Maya's eyes searched mine one last time. Then she took a shaky breath and whispered, Then don't kiss me if you're going to call this a mistake tomorrow. I reached up and brushed a strand of wet hair away from her face. My hand lingered against her cheek. I'm not going to call this a mistake, I said. I'm going to call it the thing that should have happened a long time ago. And then I kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow and careful and full of every unspoken word we had swallowed down over the years. Her hands came up to rest against my chest like she was making sure I was real. My arms wrapped around her waist like I was finally allowing myself to hold something I had wanted for so long, I had forgotten what wanting felt like. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. We were both breathing hard. I've wanted to do that since the night you brought me soup when I had the flu sophomore year, I admitted quietly. Maya let out a shaky laugh that sounded more like a sob. I've wanted you to do that since the night you stayed up until 4 a.m. helping me finish my final project, even though you had your own exam the next day. I smiled against her forehead. We're idiots. The biggest, she whispered. From the hallway, I heard Chloe's door click shut quietly. She had been watching. I didn't mind. Someone needed to make sure I didn't screw this up. Maya pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes were still red, but there was something new in them now. Something that looked a lot like hope. So, what happens now? She asked again. I tucked her hair behind her ear. Now we figure it out. Together. No more pretending. No more hiding behind friendship like it's a safety net. She nodded slowly. Then she rested her head against my chest, right over my heartbeat. I'm scared, she said. Me too, I answered honestly. But I'm more scared of going back to the way things were. We stood there in the middle of her living room, rain still falling outside, heart still racing. And for the first time in 6 years, there was nothing left between us except the truth. And it felt like coming home. After that night, nothing went back to the way it was. We didn't wake up the next morning and pretend the kiss never happened. We didn't go back to calling each other best friend like it was still the safest word in the world. Something had shifted, and we both felt it. Maya still lived with Chloe. I still lived in my small apartment in Capitol Hill. But almost every night after work, she came over. At first, it was just for dinner. Then she started leaving her jacket behind. Then a toothbrush appeared in my bathroom. Then a few changes of clothes. Then her laptop started living on my coffee table more often than not. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched it happen, quietly, like watching a plant grow in slow motion. One Saturday morning, I opened my closet to grab a hoodie and froze. Half the space was no longer mine. There was her cream-colored sweater hanging right next to my black one. Her favorite pair of jeans folded on the shelf below. A pair of her sneakers tucked in the corner. I stood there staring at the evidence of her slowly taking over my life without either of us ever officially saying the words. Maya walked out of the kitchen holding a glass of water. She saw me standing in front of the open closet and raised an eyebrow. "What are you laughing at?" she asked. I hadn't even realized I was smiling. "I was just wondering when exactly you moved in without telling me." She followed my gaze to the closet. For a second, she looked embarrassed, like she had been caught doing something wrong. Then she shrugged, trying to play it cool. Maybe I was just slowly invading. I reached into the drawer of my nightstand and pulled out the spare key I had been meaning to give her for weeks. I walked over and placed it in her hand. "You don't need to invade," I said. "You can just have a key." Maya stared at the small piece of metal in her palm like it was something fragile. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "This isn't because it's convenient or because I'm here all the time?" "No," I said. "It's because I want you to be able to walk through that door whenever you want. Not as a guest, as someone who belongs here." She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she closed her fingers around the key and nodded. When she looked up at me, her eyes were a little glassy. 2 weeks later, she officially moved in. There was no grand romantic speech, no candlelit dinner, or dramatic, "Will you move in with me?" moment. It was just us carrying boxes up the stairs, arguing about which way the couch should face, and discovering that loving each other from a distance was very different from actually living together. Maya was messier than I expected. She left half-empty coffee cups everywhere and somehow managed to spread her design sketches across every flat surface in the apartment within 2 days. I stayed up later than she thought was healthy and sometimes forgot to eat when I was deep in a project. We fought about small things. She hated that I skipped meals when I was working. I hated that she bottled everything up and said, "I'm fine," even when she clearly wasn't. One night we argued because I forgot about a dinner reservation she had made 2 weeks earlier. She stood in the kitchen with red eyes, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I'm scared this only works when we're not actually living together," she said. "I'm scared that once you see all of me, the mess, the overthinking, the way I take on everyone else's problems, you'll realize I'm not as special as you thought." I walked over to her and gently pulled her arms away from her chest. "You're not special because you're perfect, Maya," I said. "You're special because after everything, the person I still want to come home to is you." She didn't answer with words. She just stepped forward and hugged me so tightly I felt her heartbeat against mine. From that night on, the apartment stopped feeling like a place I lived alone in. It started feeling like ours. There was the sound of her keyboard clicking in the living room while I edited videos. There were her half-finished coffee cups on the table. There were mornings when I woke up to her voice calling from the kitchen. "Noah, did you eat breakfast, or are you surviving on coffee again?" For the first time in a very long time, I understood what it meant to have a home that wasn't just four walls. It was the person who made me want to come back to those four walls every single day. Then one morning, everything changed. I woke up to Maya standing by the window, phone pressed to her ear. Her face was serious in a way I rarely saw. I couldn't hear the full conversation, but I caught pieces of it. "How's Dad doing?" "The store chain." "I'll think about it." When she hung up, she sat down on the edge of the bed and told me everything. Her family owned a small chain of stores in Oregon, handmade candles, local crafts, home goods, and gifts. Her father had built it from one tiny shop into 5 locations over nearly 20 years. But his health had declined recently, and her older brother didn't want to take over the business. Her mother had called that morning asking Maya to come home, not for a visit, to take over. I sat there listening, trying to keep my face neutral even though my stomach had dropped. Maya looked down at her hands. I knew this day would come eventually. I just didn't think it would come right now. Right now. Right when we had just started being honest with each other. Right when her clothes were in my closet and her toothbrush was in my bathroom. Right when we had finally stopped hiding behind the word friend. I took a slow breath. Do you want to go? She didn't answer immediately. I love my dad, she said finally. I know how much that store chain means to him. But I also don't want to go back and lose everything I've built here. She looked at me then, and I saw the fear in her eyes. And us? I asked quietly. That's the part that scares me the most. Maya went back to Oregon for 3 days to visit her father. Those 3 days were the quietest my apartment had ever felt. But it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. Her hoodie was still draped over the back of the couch. Her toothbrush was still in the bathroom cup. The box of tea she liked was still sitting on the kitchen counter. Everything reminded me that she hadn't disappeared. It just didn't guarantee that she would come back. On the second night she called me on video. This time, she didn't forget to turn off the webcam. She was sitting in her old bedroom at her parents' house, surrounded by wooden shelves filled with family photo albums. She looked exhausted. My dad wants me to come home, she said quietly. I didn't know what to say. If I told her to stay, I was being selfish. If I told her to go, I was pushing her away with my own hands. So I asked the only question that mattered. What do you want? Maya looked down at her hands. I want to help my dad, but I don't want to give up the life I've built just to live someone else's dream. That sentence stayed with me long after we hung up. The next day, she had a family meeting. Her mother wanted her to move back immediately. Her father didn't pressure her, but his silence carried more weight than any request. Her older brother was blunt. You're the one who understands the brand the most, he said. If you don't come back, the stores will probably have to be sold eventually. Maya stood in the old kitchen where she used to help her father pack orders when she was little. She looked at the photos on the wall. She looked at her father's hands, which had started to tremble more than before. Then she said, I'll help, but I'm not moving back permanently. The room went silent. I can rebuild the entire online system, she continued. New website, online ordering, shipping across states, social media, everything. I'll fly back a few days every month to check on the stores, but I can't leave the life I've made in Seattle. Her mother asked, because of him? Maya was quiet for a few seconds. Then she answered, partly, but not only because of him. She looked at her father. I'm staying because for the first time, I have a life that I actually chose. I love this family. I love your store. But I also love the person who's waiting for me to come home. Her father didn't speak for a long time. Then he simply asked, is he good to you? Maya nodded. Yes. Does he make you smile? She smiled then, even with tears in her eyes. Yes, even when he's being an idiot. Her father let out a slow breath. Then don't leave the person who makes you want to come home. That was the moment Maya started crying. That same night, she called me again. The second I answered, she said, I'm coming back to Seattle. I closed my eyes. It felt like something heavy in my chest finally settled. What about your dad's store? I asked. I'm going to help him from here, she said. I'll build the website, the ordering system, the shipping, the marketing. I'm not abandoning my family, but I'm also not abandoning us. I couldn't speak right away. Maya looked at me through the screen. Are you still there? I let out a quiet laugh. Yeah, I'm just trying not to look too relieved. Too late, she said. Your face gave it away. 3 days later, Maya came back. She dragged her suitcase into the middle of the living room, looked around and said, I think this time I'm not going to pretend I accidentally left things here. I walked over and picked up her suitcase. Then let me help you move in properly. She looked at me. For real this time. For real. From that day on, we built something new. Maya worked her regular design job during the day. At night, she rebuilt her father's entire business from our living room. I helped her film product videos, take photos, and edit short clips for social media. Slowly, orders started coming in from California, Texas, New York, places that had never heard of their little family stores before. One late night, we sat on the living room floor surrounded by half-packed boxes. Maya's laptop was open, showing that the online store had just crossed 500 orders for the month. Her eyes were red from happy tears. "I think my dad's going to be okay," she said. I pulled her closer. "What about you?" She rested her head on my shoulder. "I think I am too." Her laptop was still open. The webcam was still on from the video call she had just finished with the store staff. I could see our reflection on the small screen. Two people sitting on the floor in the middle of a life we had chosen. I looked at her and asked, "Are you planning to turn the webcam off this time?" Maya laughed. "No need. I don't have anything left to hide." I looked at her. "Then say it." She turned to face me, calm and steady. "I love you," she said, "and I'm choosing to stay." I took her hand. "I love you too." This time, there was no accidental confession through a forgotten webcam. No secret spilled because of a technical mistake. Just two people who had spent 6 years being terrified of losing each other, finally choosing to build a home, a life, and a future where nothing needed to be hidden anymore.